So next we are going to see about water. So water is also another most important factor influencing the organisms. So in fact the earth originated in the water and it is unsustainable without earth. So this is an important point. It is unsustainable without the water. Next, it is available so limited in the deserts that only special adaptations make it possible to live there. So here in the desert regions the water is limited. So in order to live in the desert, some specific special organisms adaptation should be required. For example, camel's hump. It is an adaptation to live in the desert areas which can store water. Next, special adaptation. Okay, the productivity and distribution of plants is also heavily dependent on water. So the distribution of plants also depends upon water only. Distribution of plants is also heavily dependent on water. Next, you might also note that oceans, lakes, rivers should not face any water related problems, but it is not true. So what they are telling is the lake, the river, the oceans, does these undergo water problems? Does these undergo water problems? Yes, absolutely. These undergo water problems. How? If yes, then how it undergoes water problems? Should not face any water related problem, but it is not true. For example, the organisms for aquatic ecosystem or aquatic organisms, the quality, certain quality is required. The chemical composition, pH is required, is very important. So below or above certain critical pH or chemical composition, the organism cannot live in that environment. For example, here it is less than 5 in the inland water, and here it comes to the salinity. Next, the salinity. Salinity, it is less than 5 in the inland water. This is an important question, so I will let it mark. So it is inland water, it is 5. It is 30 to 35 in the sea, and it is greater than 100 in some hypersaline lagoons. Some organisms can tolerate wide range of salinities also. Oh my god, wait. Some can tolerate, some organism tolerant to wide range of salinities is said to be that of the euryhaline. Some which are restricted to a narrow range is said to be stenohaline. So here also there are two types, euryhalines as well as stenohaline. In euryhaline, they can withstand the temperature, withstand the salinity of the water. In the stenohaline, they cannot withstand the salinity of water. So here it comes to the point, NEET wise it is, this is important. Which is important? This 5 number is important. In the inland water is important. 30 to 35 is important. This C greater than 100 in some hypersaline lagoons is important. Euryhaline is important. Restricted to the important narrow, which is stenohaline, is also important. So many freshwater animals cannot live for long in the sea water and vice versa, because the osmotic problems they would face. So here it comes to the osmotic problems. Osmotic problems inside, for example, in freshwater the osmotic composition, osmotic balance will be some X number, and in the marine some X number. So the organisms which are living in the fresh water cannot adapt to that of the sea water, because if the osmotic balance is changed, there is a possibility of the sea water moving into that of the fish, or fish's extracellular fluid moving outside environment. So hence the osmotic balance should be maintained between aquatic organism and its surrounding fresh water or sea water. Next, the important factor comes the light. So light is required for photosynthesis, absolutely all know. Possible only when sunlight is present. Quick understand the importance of the light for living organism, particularly autotrophs. Autotrophs only important for living organisms. Many small species of small plants and herbs growing in the forest are adapted to the photosynthesis optimally under light condition. So what happens, many small plant species and herbs growing in the forest are adopted in such a way that in only optimum temperature of optimum light condition only they will undergo photosynthesis in the low light condition, because they are constantly being overshadowed by the tall canopied trees. This is an important NEET wise question, because they are constantly overshadowed by the canopied trees. So this may cause them low shade and low light conditions, they photosynthesize. Low light condition, they photosynthesize. Plants also dependent on the sunlight to meet their photo period requirement for flowering. So flowering also requires some photo period condition. For example, see, flowering is also dependent on the sunlight to meet their photo period requirement for flowering. For many animals, light is important in that they use the diurnal. This is a very important factor here. See, in the diurnal and the seasonal variation. So the organism identify their seasons only by the duration of their light intensity. This is a very important point to note. See, light intensity and the duration causes for foraging, not only the seasonal variation but also for foraging, reproductive migrating activities. See, reproductively migrating activities such as these functions can be performed only when a particular light intensity is available for particular organisms, and all light conditions won't happen. So this is a important point. Next, the availability of the light on the land is closely linked with that of the temperature. Since the sun is a source for both, availability of the light is absolutely required. So availability of light on the land is closely linked with that of the temperature, since the sun is the source for both, closely related with the temperature. So here again this is important. Deep, greater than 500 meters in the ocean, the environment is dark and it inhabitants not aware of the existence of celestial source of energy called sun. So in the deep in the oceans, greater than 500 meters, some aquatic organisms live. Those organisms do not know that even a celestial body like sun is existing on the universe. So next, the UV component of the spectrum is harmful to the many organisms, while not all the color components of the visible spectrum are available for marine plants living. So we always tell that UV component is harmful to many organisms. Absolutely it is harmful. So, and not all the colors of the visible spectrum are available for the marine plants. Marine plants at different depths of the ocean, different lights are observed. For example, here we observe, this is an important question, observe red, green and brown algae that inhabit the sea, which is likely to be found in the deepest waters, because red is having more intensity, hence red, green, brown algae are inhabiting the sea. Next, Next, the important factor comes the soil. Soil also is responsible as a abiotic factor. So here it comes to the sedimentation process also. Nature and the properties of the soil in the different places vary. So nature properties of nature and the properties of the soil vary different places. It depends upon the climate. So it depends on the climate. Nature and properties vary. So the weathering process. What is the weathering process? So in olden days or earlier days, the rocks, what happens, it gets withered off or broken off. These rocks is transported as soil or sedimentary material, and it deposits and becomes soil. So as like this only soil development occurs. See here, soil development occurred by weathering process, transport or sedimentary. Soil is composed of grain size and aggregation of determine the percolation and water holding capacity. So if the aggregation is so strong, then the water holding capacity will be low, because more it is more strong, then water holding space will become low, hence it is having low water holding capacity. So these characteristics along with the parameters such as pH, mineral composition and topography determine in large extent the vegetation in any area. So if a particular area is rich in the soil, some farmers can get farming in that area, and some organisms, some plants grow only to that of area, and some animals can feed on that plants. So particular animal lives in those particular area only. So it also topography determines. So it in turn dictates the type of animals that can be supported, such as aquatic environment. Sediment characters often determine the type of the benthic animals that can thrive there. In aquatic environment, what determines the organisms? It is a sediment character that determines the type of organism that should live in the aquatic environment. Like that, all area consists of soils. This soil only determines the what type of organism should live in those area. So we have completed the factors, abiotic factors. Next we will see about responses of abiotic factors in the next video. Thank you.